The crop tool in Adobe Lightroom Classic is a surprisingly complex feature that holds many secrets. In this video, I will teach you how to work with Lightroom's aspect ratio lock feature, how to rotate the crop tool's orientation around, and how to zoom in for additional cropping precision. We've got hidden features, undocumented keyboard shortcuts, and more to discover today. So let's jump in and let's get started. The first keyboard shortcut to learn is the R key. In Lightroom Classic, pressing the R button on your keyboard always brings you into the Develop module and activates the crop tool. Once the crop tool is active, pressing the letter H will show or hide these gray lines, which are called the crop guide overlay. We'll talk more about the crop tool overlays in a second, but first, look at this padlock in the top right corner of the crop tool panel. This padlock restricts the crop tool to a fixed aspect ratio, or we can unlock it to set an unencumbered free crop. This feature frustrates a lot of beginners, so let me illustrate the difference between a free crop and one that is confined to a specific aspect ratio. If I unlock this padlock, then I can drag the crop tool into any shape rectangle that I want. This type of freehand cropping is great when you want to hide distracting elements from your image or choose your favorite composition, but it can cause you big problems when your photograph needs to precisely fill a predefined output target. By output target, let's say that your image must eventually fill an 8 by 10 inch piece of paper. If you set a freehand crop like this, with the padlock open, then your image will never match the dimensions that are needed to fill this 8 by 10 window. So when your final output dimensions matter, then we need to use a fixed aspect ratio crop instead. This time, I'm going to tap here before I move the crop tool so that our menu of ratios appears. For this demo, I will pick 4 by 5 since that is the ratio that we need to use to produce an 8 by 10 inch print. Let me add that this photograph was shot with a DSLR camera. Most 35mm equivalent DSLRs use a 3:2 ratio for their original capture. Only an old school 4:5 camera uses a native 4:5 ratio. I bring this up because there is no way that a 35mm photographer can make their image fit into a 4:5 rectangle without cropping off a significant portion of one side. This is not Lightroom's fault, but this mathematical fact can be terribly frustrating when you've captured an image like this group shot and then you realize that you can't print it out at certain sizes without slicing someone in half. If you find yourself in this kind of situation, then turning the crop overlay feature back on might help. Remember that we can show or hide this feature using the H key on the keyboard. When the overlay is active, come up here to the Tools, Crop Guide Overlay menu option, and then activate the Aspect Ratios choice so you can see what rectangular shapes best suit this image. As you can see, prints that use the file's original 3:2 or 2:3 capture ratio would be best for this image. If you need the math help, 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 2 is 6. So this image would print well as a 4:6, an 8 by 12 inch print, or a 20 by 30. If my clients absolutely insist, I could also make this photo work as a 5 by 7 inch print. But anything that uses a 4:5 ratio is going to force a very awkward crop. Another thing that confuses an enormous number of Lightroom users here is that the crop tool sets the ratio, but not our image's final output size in inches or pixels. If my goal is to turn this photograph into a 20 by 30 inch print, then the first step is to crop this using a 2:3 ratio. In this case, I'll crop it so it's basically full frame. After we have set the crop, then we need to use the image size controls inside of Classic's Export dialog or the Print module to specify the target output size in inches or centimeters. I have an in-depth tutorial elsewhere on the Export dialog, so I'm going to cancel out of this box for now. But remember that cropping in Classic alone is just one step in the complete output file prep workflow. For our next tip, let's say that we want to crop a horizontal image out of a vertical. In almost all other image editing applications, there is a button on the screen that we can push to flip the cropping tool from a vertical to a horizontal orientation, or vice versa. Unfortunately, Classic's lousy user interface lacks this feature, but fear not. The easiest way to rotate the cropping frame 90 degrees is to press the letter X on your keyboard while the crop tool is active. As you can see, pressing the X key rotates the frame, but there is a potential pitfall to this simple keyboard shortcut. If the crop tool is not active and you press the X key, then you've accidentally given this image the reject flag and potentially queued it up for deletion. It's easy to undo this mistake, but if you're going to learn the X key shortcut, then always remember that this button does one thing if the crop tool is open and another if the crop tool is closed. Just so you know, the other way to switch the orientation is by dragging one of the corner handles all the way in until the frame pops, and then drag it back out again. If you set a crop like this, one that hides most of your original pixels away, and if you need more resolution to make a large print, then you might want to capitalize on Lightroom's Super Resolution feature to quadruple your image's dimensions at this point. Moving on to another secret skill, let's talk about zooming in while the crop tool is active. This skill is particularly useful if you're working with scanned images and you need to precisely cut away those old frayed black edges. With the crop tool active, you can hold down the Command key on a Mac or the Control key on a PC with one finger, and then you can tap on the addition symbol on your keyboard with another to zoom in. You can also use the Command or Control key and the minus symbol to zoom back out. To recenter the image on your screen while zoomed in, press and hold the space bar on your keyboard with one finger, and then click and drag using the left button on your mouse. With it zoomed in, it's easy to get just inside that frayed black corner. Use the space bar to move over, get the other corner, and to the top, and all the way around. Let me add that the ability to zoom in and out while cropping was not possible prior to Classic version 15. So if you're running older software, then you will miss out on this trick. Finally, let's talk once more about those crop overlay options. Not only can the crop overlay feature show us our aspect ratios, but it can also help with composition suggestions. For this demo, I'm going to press the letter O on my keyboard to cycle through the overlays until I find the golden spiral crop option. With a composition guide like this one, the focal point of your composition is supposed to sit at the heart of that spiral. I love this idea, but the problem right now is that the overlay's orientation does not match the content of my image. So to rotate the overlay around, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut, the Shift key, plus the letter O. Now that the orientation of the overlay matches the underlying image, I can use this guide to set a crop so that my subject benefits from a strong placement within the frame. If we return to that Tools, Crop Guide Overlay menu command one more time, then we can see a complete list of the potential overlays. If some of these appeal to you and others don't, then use the Choose Overlays to Cycle command to include or exclude the ones that you don't want from the list. Now, as you press the O key and cycle through them, only the ones you find useful will appear. Well, there you go. There were lots and lots of secrets in this one. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you learned something today, then please leave us a like or a comment down below. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in our next tutorial.